Apparently, the Fantastic Four don't have fantastic credit. I heard that once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we good? Hey, everybody. Welcome to TerrificCon. I'm Drew with Splash Pages, and we've got an absolute great, the legendary Cully Hamner. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the standard answer. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from New York, so if someone tells me to go fuck myself, I'm like, oh, okay, perfect.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay, good.
Not today.
No, Mark Bagley already did, so we're
Right.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, and if that's a compliment from Mark
Sure.
Bagley, you know. So I like to start with the beginning, and if my research shows correctly, you were young, you were watching a Star Trek marathon, and I believe you saw a thing for a tattooed lady comics.
Oh, yeah. That
in
was the
North
comic
Huntsville.
shop that I used to go to.
Yeah.
Tattooed Lady Comics. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how it started. Your mom took you over there, and then it's kind of came from there. So.
Well, I don't know. That's not how I got into comics.
No, but
that was just probably the first comic shop that I went to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
But I've always read comics.
Yeah. But what my question being is that because my dad's a Star Trek fan, so would I also say, are you also a Star Trek fan?
Yeah, I guess you could say
that. What
that.
were the favorites, and how do you feel about like Star Trek still being on? You know, you still like in terms of there's new versions,
Right.
There's even homages like the Orville, like.
I mean, I've gone through phases in my life. Sometimes I'm really into it. Sometimes I'm not. At that point, all there really was the original series.
Right.
There wasn't even Next Gen at that point.
Right.
When I saw this ad, so it was, that's what I was into. I used to read a lot of, the novels and things
Right.
like that. There wasn't anything. They weren't producing anything. I think the movies were it.
Right.
So you can't deny the longevity of it.
Of course.
Of the stuff they're doing now, there's stuff I like, there's stuff I don't. I mean, I like Strange New Worlds a lot. That's kind of the main one that I get into.
Right.
And I wonder if that's not because of how much it's like the original series.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was a big Next Gen guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, especially I grew up with original series and my dad, and I've learned to appreciate Next Generation,
Sure.
Deep Space Nine, but I also enjoy homages like the Orville. I think what they did with that is pretty solid, but still being its own thing.
Never got into that show.
You should. It's on Hulu, 3 seasons, pretty decent.
Okay.
It's got that nice vibe. So then I want to discuss. Probably I think something you're very well known for, working on Red with
right.
Warren Ellis. And, I know you worked on the series and you also worked on the prequel.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing I want to ask about, because I'm a movie person and I enjoyed Red movie, and I know you had the story with Bruce Willis. You had two. I mean, one about sunblock. The other one was about the Smarties.
Yeah.
Were there any other stories behind the scenes, or was that, no, that's my two? Like, I got nothing else.
I was on set for the final week of shooting in New Orleans, and, it was fun. I honestly hung with the crew more than I did with the actors.
Nice.
When the actors were there, and I did get to, kind of like interact with them a little bit here and there. But, when we go to location, different locations, I would just get on the crew bus and I would eat with them. And,
right.
I remember I got to be friendly with Bruce Willis's stunt double.
Oh, wow.
And I remember talking to him quite a bit. He was this kind of MMA, like muscular dude, fighter type of guy.
Right.
Really soft-spoken. And he was telling me that he came from an acting family.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, I mean, like what? And he was telling me his dad did a lot of television in the 60s.
Right,
he was in a lot of commercials.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, well, would he have done anything that I've seen?
Right.
And he said, did you ever see any of the Charmin commercials?
Okay.
And I was like, sure.
Right.
He was like, well, you remember Mr. Whipple? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, that's my dad.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, the guy's name was Stuart. And I was like, you're Stuart Whipple? That's your...
Right.
That's not what his name, obviously. But his dad was Mr. Whipple from the Charmin.
Oh, my gosh.
Very nice guy.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
That. And I still find it funny that people would ask you, I believe Bruce Willis gave you some Smarties. Like,
yeah, well, that was the first day I was there. I showed up on set and they kind of announced that I was there and he was about to shoot a scene. And as they were he kept stopping the scene because we were out in the sun.
Right.
And I'm bald and he's bald. And
right.
he kept saying, hey, Cully, sunscreen's a good idea, sunscreen, right? And he was kind of hyperactive that day. And
right.
I remember at one point, he was walking around and he handed me a pack of Smarties.
Right.
And I tweeted it. I was like, yeah, Bruce Willis just handed me a pack of Smarties.
Right.
And somebody was like, please tell me you saved those Smarties. And I was like, no, I ate them.
It's candy. Like, why?
Yeah, someone hands me candy, I eat it.
Right. It's like, okay, Bruce Willis signed me a Snickers bar. I'm going to eat that Snickers bar.
The president of the United States hands me candy. I'm going to eat that candy.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you? It was like, I saved this. No.
Sure.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. That's hilarious, though.
Yeah.
So you also worked on the Blue Beetle with the late great Keith Giffen.
Yes.
And I know that you helped with the design of it. You were the one responsible.
Well, I wouldn't say I helped. I designed the character. I co-created the character.
Yeah. What I mean is like you added the luchador
sure.
look to Jaime and whatnot, which is very distinct compared to what we saw with Ted Kord and his predecessor.
Yeah.
Dan Garrett. So, like again that, and then you had this character spinning out of Infinite Crisis.
Yeah.
Jaime is still a part of DC.
Yeah.
So that's your boy. So you see that, and how do you feel about like his evolution of portrayals? You had Smallville, then you had Brave and the Bold, and now you have the new film with Zola Marchena.
I mean, there's almost so much content out there that I haven't seen all of it. Like I never watched the Brave and the Bold stuff other than I think I checked out an episode once just to see what it looked like. But when you're doing a character like that, you don't really think, in 10, 15 years, 17 years, whatever, that it's going to be everywhere.
Right.
I mean, you just don't think of it in those terms. I barely knew that anybody was even reading it when I was drawing the book. You know?
It's a great book.
Yeah, and here we are, like all this time later, and it's like a signature character for me.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I think you get so used to this older generation. The DC, they're permanently like. I want to say like 30s, late 20s, and then you have this kid, this next generation, and he's, again, you and Keith, he's a kid. He has his friends, he has his family, and he's like, and I have an alien technology fused in my spine.
Yeah.
I'm expected to save the world, but still get homework done and watch out for my sister. Like, shit, So it was just so fantastic. So then the other thing you also really helped out a lot was the New 52.
And the reason that they brought me in on that was because of Blue Beetle,
right?
Because that was essentially a costume design situation, a redesign situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Mark Chiarello, who was the art director at the time,
right?
Sat me down and like kind of read me into the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember him saying, partially it was because the Blue Beetle redesign was the most successful redesign of a character that they had had in 20 years.
Wow.
And so they brought me in for New 52, mm-hmm. And Jim and I kind of jammed on most of that. It's weird because like it started out as a situation where like Jim and I just sort of split things. Like I think I don't know the exact number. He must have designed something like 80 or 90 characters.
Jeez.
I must have done like at least 60 or 65.
Wow.
But it also became almost a de facto kind of an art director job. Like, I was still a freelancer, but they were having me weigh in on designs that other people did.
Right.
Not only were Jim and I kind of jamming back and forth with each other, but if somebody did designs on a book, like the editor would turn to me and go like, well, what do you think of this? Do you have any suggestions?
Right.
And do you approve of this?
Right.
And I actually had approval on some stuff, which was not part of the original remit that we had.
Right.
It just sort of evolved that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any favorite? Like, can you remember a favorite that you had?
There's a favorite a couple of favorites that I had that no one ever saw.
Okay.
Like there was a Robot Man redesign that no one ever saw that I really liked. And an Hour Man design I thought was pretty cool that I still wouldn't mind using at some point.
Oh, hey,
so,
Hour Man. You never, only if there's time. Hour Man.
Yeah.
So the last question I have is, I'm a huge Starman fan, and I know you got to work with James Robinson on a couple issues of the Shade when they got relaunched in the New 52.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
So you did that. You had Shade versus Deathstroke.
Yeah.
And a couple of things. So what was that like, kind of dipping your toe into kind of like what was a gem of the 90s DC? You're bringing it back. You're kind of telling, I wouldn't say the last story, but definitely, what was that like?
That was interesting because that was happening at the same time as New 52. So I was drawing those issues while I was doing all the redesign stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like James and I, Well, James and I knew each other because we had done Firearm at
Right.
Malibu back in the early to mid '90s.
Wow. Okay.
And Tony Harris was a studio mate of mine and also a roommate of mine, and so I was there while he was doing Starman.
Wow.
And so we were both working with James at the same time.
That's awesome.
And it was just great fun. And there was even a character in the 3-issue arc that I did. A lot of people did arcs on that series. The arc that I did, his name was Von Hammer, and he was kind of in the neighborhood of Firearms. So James did that on purpose so that basically we could have a similar character in there that, that was fun. But yeah, I mean, I always like working with James.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, I just, like I said, it's always really, like, what I love about your work is it's detailed, but it's kind of simplistic in a cartoon style. Like, it's very easy, but it's still like the detail you put. It's just fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's that nice where it's comics, but it's like it kind of bleeds a little animation.
I mean, I feel like that's a tightrope that I like to walk.
Yeah.
I like to have that sort of slight kind of animated feel to things because I just feel like it gives things a nice bounce and a nice, but I mean, polish. A lot of this is not, I don't sit down and go, I am going to draw this in an animated style. It's just how I
it's just how you
work.
do.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I just want to ask the last question. In terms of people, like, I want to say, you worked in industry a while. I imagine you're a fan of. Like, did you ever work or at a con and you're just like, I'm going to stand in line to meet this person because I'm a fan of you?
No, that doesn't really happen very often. I mean, you tend to kind of run into people that I'm a fan of. You sort of see at industry, parties or functions or whatever, after hours, that sort of.
Okay.
I'm lucky enough to become friends with people whose work I grew up on, and
that's great.
You don't really have to stand in line to meet anybody.
Okay.
So very, very rare. I mean, I imagine it may have happened, but not that often.
Well, it's like I said, the reason I bring that up is because at the Larry Kenny panel, he was at a con and Mark Hamill was online to meet him.
Right.
And I was just like
I mean,
wow, you never know.
But, I mean, even before I did comics or did conventions or anything, even when I was young, I was never somebody who was going to stand in line to meet someone. It just not something I'm kind of into,
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, Cully Hamner, check out his work if you haven't. He is boss as heck. Seriously, Blue Beetle, anything else, check it out. But I'm Drew with Splash Pages, TerrificCon. Stay tuned, we got a lot coming.
Thank you.
Excelsior!